Okay, so let's set up the control rig here, and I'm going to start by creating a NURBS primitives circle. I'm going to delete the history right away, and I'm just going to rename it placement control. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the geo, I'll group it to itself, I'll name that geo. I'm going to take the wire curves, the vine curve and the vine curve base, I'll group that, and that's going to be my rig group. I'll take both of those, parent them under the placement node, and then group the placement node to itself and call that root. And if I expand all that, you'll see that under our placement control we have our geo and we have our wire curves. We can now move that anywhere we want, place it, scale it, whatever, and our rig's going to work. So now I'll take our placement control and I'm going to add an attribute. I'm going to make sure this attribute's a float because it should be any number, and I'm going to call this one grow. I'll call the attribute grow. I want the minimum to be 0. I don't want to go and be able to go into negative. I just want the minimum that this thing can be to be 0. I want the maximum to be, the maximum can be whatever, no limit, and the default I'll say is 1 because I want it to be a cube by default. I want it to be that 1 unit high. Press OK. Now I have a grow attribute. Bottoms out at 0, can go up to whatever. So now, if I graph that out, or rather go into my connection editor, I can reload the placement control on the left and then our geo on the right, and we can plug grow right into the scale Y of the geo. Now you can see that I can grow my cube. It'll divide right from the placement control. This way I don't have to go switching from control to having this the control curve to having to select the geo, back to the control curve. It's all right there. So now the next problem I want to solve is that in some cases or some workflows you might have the requirement of not having this geometry rebuild itself all the time. It might need to be a solid mass. All the geometry, the vert count might not be able to change for whatever reason, caching or UVs or whatever. So my solution to that would be to create a couple more attributes, and we'll go to modify, add attribute again, and we're going to call the first one auto divide. We'll make that displayable because I don't think it's something that we really need to key. It's just something we need to be able to have access to, and that's going to be a boolean, which is an on-off switch. So we'll add it. There it is. There's our auto divide on-off switch. So we have one more attribute to make, and we'll just call this one divisions. And this is for if we're not auto dividing the geometry. This is how many divisions we're going to manually say we want. This one we can also make displayable, and this one should be an integer number. Again, we want the minimum to be 1 because we don't ever want to have less than 1 for stability reasons, and we also don't want to have over 1,000 because that might break the system. And we'll say the default is 1, and we'll say OK to add it. And there are our divisions, pure integers, and we have our on-off switch. On, off. So now we just got to hook them up. If I graph out now, our placement control, we can pretty much see the whole rig. And in order to get these guys to work, what we're going to do is use this condition node, which in programming is also known as the if statement. And the idea is that if we look at the attributes, you have a first term, you have a second term, and then you have the operation. If the operation is equal, that means if the first term matches the second term, the output value will be this color if true. If the two don't match, then the color of false will be the output. So we're going to use it this way, and very simply our on-off switch, which would be the auto divide of the placement control, is going to be the first term of our condition. 1 being on, 0 being off. Since the second term is 0, when the auto divide is on, we want the color if false to be the color of false will be the output. So if auto divide is on, we need to make sure that the scale Y of this Vine Geo is what's in charge. So we're going to plug scale Y into our color if false G, which again would be the same thing as color if false Y for consistency. Now we can also take the placement control, go back to this condition, and then we can say our divisions would be the color if true Y. If they match, if the switch is off and they match, we're going to output this number of divisions. Now of course we have to overwrite into this clamp our scale Y into input G. Now we want to go from the condition, because all this information now is going through the condition, and then the out from the condition, the out G, can go into the input G, overwriting the direct connection from Vine Geo to the clamp. And now we should have a working rig. So if we look at it and we select our placement control, again, we can move it anywhere, do anything with it, and we have our attributes. So right now auto divide is off, so you'll see if I grow it, nothing happens. If I turn auto divide on, the grow will be the divisions. So let's say I'm only going to grow this 5 units in a scene. I want the geometry to always have the same vertice count. I don't want it to rebuild on the fly. I can turn divisions to match that for 5 and turn auto divisions off. Now you'll see when I grow it, or when I shrink it back down, it's always going to have those divisions. So it's just, kind of useful if you have requirements like that. They're pretty simple to set up. So we'll put everything, we'll put auto divide back on by default.